Hi Wolves. In this video I'm going to show you how to make a dubstep song. The first drop sounds like this. Out of green! And the second drop sounds like this. Out of green! In this video, I'm going to be breaking down all of the different instruments and drums and layers and tracks and sound design that go into making a song like this. Hopefully you can learn something from it. I'm going to try to be pretty in-depth, but let me know if there's anything I miss. I'll put a link for you to stream the finished version of the song in the description if you want to check that out. But for now, let's just get into it, starting with the intro. It sounds like this.
That's not what it does.
That is what it does. Pot of greed.
So the first thing you'll hear is these vocals. It's from a YouTube video of someone playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And he just keeps playing Pot of Greed over and over. It's pretty funny. On the vocals, I have an auto filter doing a bandpass just to add some glitchy textures. The first layer
That's not what it does.
is kind of a quiet layer.
That is what it does. Pot of greed.
This is not the main vocal, so it's kind of supposed to sound different than the main vocal. It's just the intro. I'm using delay and reverb with an envelope follower so that there's less delay and reverb when the vocal is actually talking. And then when there's no audio for the vocal, you hear more of the delay and reverb, so you can see that here.
That's not what it does.
And that happens throughout the song, on most of the vocal layers. Second thing you'll hear in the intro is this tone. I just made this with hybrid reverb.
That is what it does. Pot of greed.
And I think I just put it on one of the groups. I just put hybrid reverb on it and then just tweaked the settings until it sounded kind of spooky. There's a downlifter, just a kind of glitchy sound to add some more texture. There's these bass fills that happen at the end of every 4 bars to kind of switch things up and keep the intro more interesting. That continues throughout the verse. This is really good to put in the intros and verses of your dubstep songs because stops it from getting repetitive, and it reminds the listener that it is a dubstep song when you just put some growls in there. This is just from the drop that I just literally copy pasted into the verse. We get into the first verse, it sounds like this.
I summon Pot of Greed to draw 3 additional cards from my deck. And I summon Pot of Greed to draw 3 additional cards from my deck.
That is what it does.
Then I play Magic Force, which allows me to play Pot of Greed once again to draw 3 additional cards from my deck.
So here we have the main vocal coming in. There's not a whole lot going on with it. The delay and reverb are here. There's a gate because there's a lot of background noise in this video, and I actually spent a lot of time cleaning it up, trying to get it more clean because there's like 3 or 4 people talking in this clip, and I really only want to hear one at a time.
I summon Pot of Greed to draw 3 additional cards from my deck.
So you can hear the delay and reverb there and the other people talking. There's a second layer,
I summon Pot of Greed to draw 3 additional cards from my deck.
which is a little bit wider, using chorus to make it wider, and then an auto pan. And it's more for the low mids that just plays
I summon Pot of Greed
at the same time as the main vocal, just to give it some width There's really nothing super crazy there. Then the vocal glitches continue. I think you just hear it between the vocals. Some really short reverses. It's mostly this main vocal with the echo and the delay and reverb. That's kind of the focal point. For the instruments, we have a couple of transitions. Make sure you use these in dubstep just to switch between different sections of the song. They can be super quiet, they just add a little bit of texture. And they fill out the top end a lot more. There's this siren downlifter, and then it's reversed. Just transitioning between the different parts of the song and adding some dissonance to build tension. And there's this respace. This is a pretty standard respace just with a phaser. I don't have the serum in front of me because I wanted to convert it to audio. We're using an envelope follower here to duck the low mids. And I believe that is coming from, where is it? It's ducking the vocals. It's using an envelope follower so that when the vocal is loud, we're cutting around 200. It's just a good way to clean things up. Because you really don't want it to get too muddy here. Especially 100 to 200 in dubstep, usually you want to cut more than boost. Obviously it depends on how much is going on in the song. It can get pretty muddy and pretty messy pretty quickly. So I'm just ducking the vocals here. For the drums here, it's pretty standard, just cinematic drums. We're using a ghost kick to sidechain to, so even though this kick is turned off, doesn't have any audio, this is what we're sidechaining to, because you don't want to sidechain to this whole thing. You really just want to duck the initial part of the kick. And we're not ducking all of them, just some of them, the main kicks, to avoid it getting too messy, and also just to give it some rhythm so that everything is just ducking this a little bit. Halfway through the verse, there's this perk that comes in. It's pretty rhythmic. It doesn't do much, it just adds a little bit of texture and it stops the drums from getting too repetitive. Just halfway through the verse, halfway through any section of the song, it's good to just make some kind of change to stop it from getting too repetitive. Then we transition into the build. It sounds like this.
Play pods of greed once again to draw 3 additional cards from my deck. From my That's what it do, you.
So at this point, we are just repeating the vocal over and over.
From my deck.
And halfway through, there's this version, which is the same build, just saying deck, and then it's ran through Spectral Resonator. And it's being pitched up just to make the build more intense. When you pitch it up, you're building tension so that when the drop actually starts, there's a release, hopefully. This is the main lead for the first drop. And it's just the rhythm from the drop. That same rhythm is what's playing during the build. And that's to give the listener kind of a preview of what to expect in the drop so that the first time they hear this lead and this rhythm, they're not completely caught off guard. They kind of were expecting it. For the drums for this first build, we have a kick, really aggressive kick. I think this is a cashmere kick. It's already in the key of F, and it kind of looks like a sawtooth wave. It's really a thick kick. It's layered with a clap. The clap is playing quarter notes and eighth notes. The second clap is quieter, just to give some more variation. If it wasn't, it just sounds less interesting. The risers, we have this is a clap with a volume envelope. Let's see if it's here. It's not. There's a volume envelope built into here, but it's getting pitched down 1 octave. This is really just to fill out space. It's not meant to be very attention grabbing. We have this build, this riser, and we're bringing it in with an EQ automation, a bandpass to have it open up. There's this downlift. It's really just a clap. It's really quiet. It's getting pitched down 1 octave. This is the main riser. And this is one of the leads in the drop. It's this bass. And then it's just flattened to audio. And then I believe there's a phaser or a flanger on it with some feedback that's getting increased, along with a bandpass EQ that is letting in more of the highs and lows. One more riser. This one is really high pitched. I like to use these during build-ups because they will cut through the mix really easily, and you can fit them in. You can put them right at the end, and they'll just kind of make the last section of the build-up a little bit more intense. And then we transition into the drop. This is what the drop sounds like.
That's what it do, you eat! Out of greed!
That does what it do!
You never saw this coming!
So we will start with the drums. Right before the drop, there's a tom or a sub impact, really short, really quiet, reversed crash or ride cymbal. The main vocal.
That's what it do, you eat!
For the drums, the first 2 bars are mostly silent. There's really just a kick and this crash and a hi-hat, and that's to build tension because the first 2 bars of this drop are kind of teasing the lead, and then the actual lead and the bass play. It repeats for the second half, so that's why the first part here is quiet to build some more tension. Then the drums actually start. It's mostly carried by the kick and snare. So a really heavy kick. And then for the snare, it's this really short hip hop snare. Then layered with some type of crash or clap. It's very metallic. For this layer, I'm just fading it in to kind of duck the main snare so that this snare cuts through really easy. There's two different hi-hats that play. One is a shaker, one is a hi-hat. Something about these hi-hats is they're two semitones apart. Play one and then play a second one that is two semitones lower, just to give it a little bit of variation, a little bit of rhythm. And just another small detail is I usually like to do the high one first and then the lower one, the one that's a lower semitone. I usually do that with everything. If there's two variations of it, I usually will play the higher pitched one first. That's just something I do, usually. Some really quick snare drum fills. Pretty much it for the drums. Some of the hi-hats are reversed, or some of the crashes are reversed. Then you crossfade into the reversed one. Some of the crashes are pitched down a little bit, just to give it a little bit more variation, a little bit more rhythm. First part of the drop is just this lead from the build-up. If you want to know how to make this sound, I have a tutorial on it. It's called How to Make Nasty Wubs. It's a YouTube short. You can check that out because I don't have the serum in front of me. Usually it's best to get these basses in audio so you can chop them up more easily. Like I could just like do this if I wanted to. It's so much easier. If I wanted like one of these to be just a little bit shorter or like a little bit higher pitched, it's so easy to do that in audio. It just is time consuming and tedious and complicated to do that with MIDI, so it's easier to just get it in audio as soon as you can. What I like to do is make a backup of the MIDI version so I can go back to it if I need to recreate it.
Out of green.
So yeah, it's just this for the first majority of the first two bars to build the tension. And then it cuts out so you can hear the vocal. And then the main lead of this drop is this. And we do have serum for this one. It's the Evolution wavetable. That's like my favorite wavetable for basses, for either choppy basses or sustained basses like this. Especially like right here around 44 wavetable position. The harmonics, the first three harmonics are really nice, especially for super low songs that are in like F through C, I guess. I like them. One thing I've learned about making these basses is if you really want it to hit, you want that second harmonic right here to be pretty high up. Usually you wouldn't have that second harmonic be as loud as this first one. But for these types of basses, I think it just makes the bass hit so much better. The real magic behind this, that's just the sub. This. The real magic comes from this sine wave, which is being processed with the Evolution wavetable, the main bass. The sine is just 2 octaves higher. And then you run both of these, the Evolution wavetable and the sine, through Redux. So without Redux, with Redux. It's pretty cool. And then what I'm doing is I have 2 Redux. The first one I just use to control the sample rate. And then the second one I use to control the bits. And then usually I'll have a third one that's before the sample rate, just because I like to play around with changing things before and after, just to see if it sounds different. But yeah, that's why there's two of these there. Maybe you could do them both in one. Maybe you don't need to. I guess it probably does the rate before the bits, but I don't know. Sometimes I like to do the bits first. And then it's going through serum hyperdimension to make it wider, a little bit detuned, because otherwise it's in mono. Serum hyperdimension is like my favorite thing to add with to sounds. Phasers are also good. I probably use hyperdimension more than phaser, but yeah. Cutting out basically the sub bass, or making it mono. Everything above that gets to be wide. Cutting out a little bit below the fundamental here, because I'm hoping that's gonna avoid bias, so like the waveform is even. I don't know if it's actually working or if it's actually needed, but if it is needed, then it's good to have. Then it goes through a limiter just to kind of compress it, just to keep it at like the same volume throughout all the different sections, the different notes it plays, just to keep it consistent for the second half of the drop. It's the same thing, I just created a separate channel for it so that I can just have separate processing on it. I don't have to automate it. For the rest of the drop, there's this tear out lead that plays twice, kind of just to transition between the first fourth of the drop and the second 1/4 of the drop. I have the serum here for this one, so I can show you that too. It's 2 sawtooth waves with some modulation on the fine, the detune. Both of these are basically all the way detuned. Both have 16 voices. The detune goes all the way up. There's some noise on here also, being modulated by the same LFO. There's a low pass filter, 2 distortions, tube distortion, then downsample distortion, and then hyperdimension to add even more width. The real sauce of this is playing 2 notes at the same time. So I'm playing F and G, just to make it even more detuned. And then saturator, delay and reverb, so that you only hear, it's just reverb, you only hear the reverb after this plays. I could just automate the amount of reverb, but I don't want to. Shelf to cut some of the highs after it plays, because there's just a lot going on in there. It's basically white noise. And then this part is just that same thing, just frozen, flattened to audio and reversed. And then there's this bass. I just call it the Zomboy bass. I don't know if Zomboy's music really sounds like this, if that's a good name for it, but that's what I call it. I have a YouTube short, how to make Zomboy bass. You can watch that if you want to learn how to make this. I don't have the serum in front of me because I like working in audio more, as much as I love sound designing it and making this stuff. It's just so much easier to work in audio and do like this, the 27 milliseconds of fade in on this compared to the 0 on this. I mean, that would just be a pain to set up in MIDI, so it's in audio. Most people probably know that, but if you're stuck in MIDI, try just working in audio. You might like it more. There's some layers here. I made this just with, I think, 2 phasers, just running this entire group through a phaser with a lot of feedback. It's really quiet. It's going through a bandpass. Mostly just want the high end of this to add a little bit of texture. Some rises. This one is kind of two rises, isn't it? It's being automated with a low pass, and then it goes up twice. Because here's when the bass is playing, and then there's a vocal playing at the last section of it, so you can kind of hear that.
Out of green.
So for the second 1/4 of the drop, we're playing the Zomboy bass.
That does what it do.
The Zomboy bass is layered with a kick, just super low to give it a little bit more impact right at the first part of this bass. And then one beat before the halfway point, we kind of cut everything out and just let the vocal play.
That does what it do.
You never saw this coming.
And then at this point, we just repeat the vocal again. And we're using shifter to pitch it up to add more dissonance, create more tension before the bass hits again. And it's playing, this vocal is just playing as a quarter note along with the main bass.
You never saw this coming.
Yeah. I call this sound here, this main bass, the nasty wubs. I don't know if I said that before, if I said a different name, but yeah. The YouTube short on this is called How to Make Nasty Wubs.
You never saw this coming.
Another riser on the way out. A lot of the times it's good to use another riser at the end of your drops. This part didn't make it into the final version of the song, but I guess I deleted whatever is in the final version somehow. But this I made with granulator, basically taking like this.
You never saw this coming. Out of green.
And then putting that in a granulator, and then just playing with the start position to get it to sound stretched out and glitchy like that. We transition out of the first drop into the second verse. I will just let the second verse play here all the way to the build.
And I attack and I win. Right?
No. My turn. I summon Dark Magician. I also summon Jack's Knight.
That's not what it does. That is what it does.
That's what it do, Yugi.
You know, he's right. That does what it do.
You never saw this coming. I summoned Pot of Green to draw 3 additional cards from my deck.
So at the start here, we have 3 downlifts. One is a sub impact, another one is just a shorter low impact, and then an actual high-pitched crash downlifter. Then we are repeating the hybrid reverb tone from the intro, and then some more glitchy downlifter sounds.
Dark Magician!
But same thing from the first verse, then reversing it to kind of fill out the frequency spectrum. The same respace as before. Same drums as before. The vocals
And
are
I
different.
attack and I win. Right?
Just because it's from a different part of the video that I sampled it from.
My turn. I summon Dark Magician. That's what it do, Yugi. You You never saw this coming. I summoned Pot of Greed to draw 3. I summoned Pot of Greed to draw.
At this point,
I summoned Pot of Greed to draw. I summoned Pot of Greed to draw 3 additional cards.
yeah, that part's pretty much the same, I guess. That's really it for the second verse. Besides this, we introduced this new lead.
You know, he's right. That does what it do.
You never saw this coming.
If you want to learn how to make this sound, I have another YouTube short called How to Make a Rhythm Lead. In that video, I go over the processing of what goes on in Serum 2 to make this. Then we transition into the second build. It sounds like this.
I summoned Pot of Greed to draw 3 additional cards from my deck.
That does what it do.
For the second build, we're using this bass. This is going to be the main bass in the second drop. This is my favorite part of the song, where it kind of transitions from eighth notes into quarter notes. That's done using a macro that I made in Serum. If you watch the How to Make a Rhythm Lead YouTube short, you can see that macro. But I think this is my favorite part of the song, where it switches here. For the drums, they're mostly the same as the first build. It's mainly a kick and a clap. This snare, it's just a snare repeating over and over again, being pitched up with shifter. It is being pitched up 300 hertz, and then we're using a really aggressive bandpass filter to play more high frequencies. Sounds really cool. It cuts through the mix really well. I use this in a lot of my songs. The risers for the second build are pretty much the same also. There's this reverb clap, the sustain bass, which is a lead in the drop. The main difference is this siren downlifter that plays at the very start of the build. It's a riser, I guess. It's not a downlifter. That one's not in the first build. So, yeah, we just pitch up the vocals, tease the lead from the drop so that the first time you hear the drop, it sounds familiar. And we transition into the second drop. It sounds like this.
That does what it do.
Pot of Greed. Magic Force! Pot of Greed!
So the second drop uses pretty much the same arrangement, just with different leads. The first two bars we are building tension. We're just teasing this main rhythm lead. And that is paired with a kick, just to give it a little bit of punch right at the beginning. The same riser that I made by just putting flanger and delay on the group and recording it. And then we go back into the sustain bass, which is the main lead for this drop, just like it was in the first drop. The only difference is we're starting with this variation and then going to this one. In the first drop, it was the other way around. Start with the other one. just to give it a little bit of variation. I don't know how many people actually notice that when they listen to the song, but it helps me at least feel like they're different. The drums are the same, mostly the kick and snare layered with a clap, 2 hats, and a crash or a ride. That's the same as the first drop. Some of the kicks are different lengths. They're like that in the first drop too, but it adds some variation. And then they're also pitched differently. So this kick is tuned to F. This one is tuned to F sharp. Yes, that's true, it is. The song is in the key of F. Sometimes the bass goes from F to F sharp. So the kick will also go from F to F sharp. You don't need to do that. You don't need to tune your kicks. Sometimes I like to do it just so the fundamental of the kick and the sub are in the same spot. It makes it sound a little bit more cohesive, but I don't think anyone really notices that stuff. It's just kind of nice to do sometimes. Then you can kind of pitch them around the same way. Helps with the cohesion a little bit, but I don't know how impactful that really is. For the second drop, we're using this bass instead of that Zomboy bass I was talking about. This, I have a YouTube short on called How to Make Heavy Bass. Just another thing that I couldn't think of a good name for it, and so it's just called Heavy. The main difference with this drop is that we are layering this bass with the sustain bass. It's kind of similar to the rhythm lead. It's a really metallic bass. And then we're using a low pass automation to kind of give it a little bit more of a shape. We're using EQ to duck the bass at 174 because that's where one of the important harmonics is for this sub. That's probably where that sine wave is. That's layered with the sub. This one worked out pretty well. To layer it with this bass, I was trying to layer it with the first drop. I was trying to layer the Zomboy bass, I'm pretty sure. Like this. But it just didn't work. Some sounds you can layer with sustain basses like this, some you can't. It turns out that this one worked better than the other one. And then that gives the second drop some variation because the second drop has that layer, the first drop doesn't. And then pretty much repeat that for the second half. The variation for the second half is just that we switch to the other sustain bass. And there is a slightly different vocal.
Magic force! 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 Out of green!
But the arrangement is still the same. So we're getting variation by finding one arrangement that works and sticking with it, and then just changing the sounds that we're using. For me, getting the arrangement right, and for like how long this is gonna go for before the sustain bass plays. When does the sustain bass stop? And then what sound do you play then? How often does it repeat? That part takes a long time for me to get right. And so once I find something like that, I really try and stick with it until the end of the song. And then I just switch the leads to give it some variation. That's pretty much what I did here. So we transition out of the second drop. For this outro, we're using a granulator that I recorded to audio, it's just the Pot of Greed vocal.
Pot of greed!
And then put through a granulator. I know I talked about this before, but it's just playing with the start position of the granulator and then changing the amount of time that it goes for before it starts over. Gives it this super glitchy sound. And that's what I chose for the outro. Just to give it some more layers, we're using the hybrid reverb tone, the sine downlifter, the 3 transition effects, and then 1 final transition in the outro. These cymbal transitions are my favorite things to use for outros and for transitions in general. Sometimes you can use a downlifter and reverse it, like here, but sometimes it's just cleaner to use these cymbal transitions, especially when the first half of it is louder than the second half. For some reason that sounds really cool. I'm not really sure why, but it sounds so much better when this first half is louder than the second half. I don't really know why. But yeah, that's it for this one. If you guys liked the video, let me know by liking and subscribing. Let me know if there's anything in this tutorial that I missed, any tutorials that you want me to do in the future. And one more time, I will put a link to stream the song in the description, so you can check that out if you want, but you don't have to. Anyway, I hope you liked the video. I hope you learned something. And for right now, I'm just going to play the second drop, and then I'm going to let the video end. Peace out, y'all.